27th, 2000 order, and we will entertain motions.
Okay. I move to enter into executive session to discuss negotiations between the Ithaca City School District and Ithaca Teachers Association, to discuss the employment history or matters leading to the employment, promotion, discipline, or removal of confidential non-managerial employees, and to discuss the employment history or matters leading to the employment, promotion, discipline, or removal of members of the Ithaca Principal and Directors Association.
Second.
Before moving on, did you want to? Oh, Emily is not here.
Oh,
There was
modification.
I could bring it up.
Emily's.
Do you want to add another additional thing to executive session?
I think that last one covers it.
It does not. No.
Yes. I would like to make the motion to. Just
We have to read this over.
Read it and then just change the last part.
read the whole thing again.
No, just the matters leading to the one of those.
What do you want to add?
One of those semicolons.
Yes. What word do you want to add that in the last part?
I mean,
To be
I believe that it's there.
I'm gonna once again say it is currently not listed as a matter for us to discuss in executive session.
Oh, is that what it is?
yeah.
Oh,
Session.
You can just say an employee would help us. I would just click.
Yeah. Is it to add appointment, employment? Appointment was not.
and to discuss the employment history or matters leading to the employment, promotion, discipline, or removal of members of the oh my God,
Of a bargain unit.
no,
Just say an employee.
of an employee, thank you.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Is that a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
To Adam, to you as well, Adam, since you're
Yeah. Yes, of course.
So we're working out some parliamentary details in real time. So discussion, debate, questions. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? The motion passes unanimously. We will do our absolute best to be here at 7 o'clock to resume our meeting, and we'll see you about 8 shortly. Patience, looking back and continue on with our meeting if I can find my agenda, which has disappeared. Thank you for grabbing the bonus. Fantastic. And we'll continue with any modification to the agenda. Hearing none, we'll continue on with the agenda, which includes a public comment period. And we have a couple folks who are signed up. I will just go ahead and read names, and my apologies if I mispronounce. The first person who's scheduled is Cornelia Yee. Yes. You can go right up there.
Hi everyone, my name is Cornelia Yee. I'm currently a junior at Ithaca High School. So Cornell University recently announced its decision to significantly increase its annual voluntary contribution to ICSD. I think that this investment sends a very powerful message about the value of our students and the importance of educational opportunity in our community. Building on this momentum, I urge the board to make an additional request to the university by formally asking Cornell to reopen dual enrollment in university courses to high school students. Before, ICSD students were able to enroll in Cornell courses through the School of Continuing Education. However, recent restrictions on the enrollment of minors have effectively excluded students from these opportunities. The few students who do have the chance must wait until after they've turned 18 to enroll. At the same time, ICSD has reduced the number of advanced and specialized courses due to budgeting and staffing constraints. These were the classes that allowed students to deeply explore their academic interests and push themselves beyond the standard high school curriculum. Dual enrollment at Cornell could be the meaningful supplement to these lost opportunities. Additionally, this request is supported by clear precedent. Cornell has already demonstrated that dual enrollment of ICSD is feasible with its former pathway through the School of Continuing Education, showing that this proposal is not a leap into the unknown. Moreover, peer institutions in the Ivy League have long embraced similar models. Dartmouth and the University of Pennsylvania both offer semester on-campus dual enrollment programs for local high school students. These programs have existed for decades and illustrate how universities can meaningfully expand and strengthen their relationships with the surrounding communities. As a junior who will complete my math track at IHS next year, I see an extra sense of urgency with this issue. While my peers in other districts will be taking multivariable calculus and linear algebra classes offered through their schools, I and many of my other friends are missing out on some of our most important coursework at one of the most important points in our educational careers. Opening Cornell courses to ICSD students would give motivated students access to the district, access to classes that the district simply does not have the capacity to offer, while allowing them to demonstrate their readiness in a rigorous academic environment. This partnership would be a powerful, low-cost way to expand opportunity, foster excellence, and strengthen the relationship between ICSD and Cornell. I urge you to advocate for Cornell to adjust its policy regarding the enrollment of minors in order to reopen dual enrollment with ICSD students. We are ready for these opportunities. We simply need the door to be opened. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our list is Meg Burke.
I didn't bring any charts this time. I know, probably really sad about that. Okay. I'm Meg Burt. I'm a librarian at Northeast Elementary. I'm here just to acknowledge the great progress our school district will be making with the pending ratification of the ITA contract. The new step and lane structure finally rewards the years of service our educators have dedicated to our school and lets everyone plan a future to stay here in ICSD. I'm so glad that when we retire from ICSD, this contract allows us to take care of our veteran teachers' health in a way that honors how they have spent so many years taking care of our school communities. There are so many positive additions and changes with this contract that I really can't list them all, but my two favorites are personally dear to me. The first is, in a little over 3 months as a first-time mom, I will be able to use 12 weeks of my sick time instead of the former 6 weeks to spend with my newborn without penalty. I will have the time to heal and bond with my child. And even more significant, if I did not have that 12 weeks of accrued sick time, I could access the ITA sick bank to be sure I get those crucial 12 weeks. We love our students and we can spend so much time caring for the children of others. It means so much to be allotted the time to love and care for our own children. That brings me to my second favorite piece of this contract, and that is raising the cap from only 26 children of ICS teachers being allowed to attend ICSD schools from out of the district to 50 teachers being allowed to send all or any of their children to our schools. I love my school community so much, but realistically, I didn't have much hope living out of the district of my child ever going to Northeast with that very long waiting list. I'm so very excited that now my future child will be part of the Northeast Wolfpack and community that I adore so much. Thank you for working with us in such a new and public way and really listening and progressing with us and making ICSD a place where teachers and their families want to stay. Thank you.
On the list is Jacob Chapin. Hope I pronounced that correctly. And I was gonna ask you when I saw it. My apologies.
It's a long A. Whoop.
Big man like Harry. Hi, folks. My name is Jacob Chapin, and I'm here to encourage the ratification of the ITA CBA. I serve as the ITA's PPR&R chair. Ask me later what that stands for because it's too long for right now. The short version is the grievance guy. This means that I often have to be Mr. Negative, and today I wanted to do some shout outs, but I'm aware of the prohibition against names, so I thought ahead. So there's number one, to your chief executive officer for opening the doors to not only my membership, but to the community and made this whole process more democratic for everyone. Kudos. Kudos number two, to my membership. That's all I have to say. They're awesome. Kudos number three, to your chief investigative officer for showing up to every bargaining session and taking our fervor and heightened emotion with grace and aplomb. Kudos number four, I'm holding on to until after you vote tonight. Blood, sweat, and tears went into this agreement. It has been my pleasure to help craft such document. When I started this process, I didn't have the white in my beard. The metaphor that the ITA has used throughout this process has been building, flying, and landing an airplane. So I'm strongly encouraging you. We've built and flew this airplane together. Please don't crash on the runway.
For all the folks who are signed up to speak, that brings us to board responses. Adam, yes.
Yeah, Cornelia, thanks for coming. You did a great job with your presentation, so thanks for that. I think it's a great idea, obviously something that's happened in the past. It might be a conversation that we can have, maybe in curriculum, maybe in some other committees, but definitely explore that question, consider revisiting it. So thanks for bringing it to the attention of the board.
Similarly, yes, I think we will address this question in curriculum committee. I think it's a good one. I hope that in the community also, we can both recognize the voluntary contribution from Cornell and also continue to put pressure on the esteemed institution. I'm sure many of you saw the article that Cornell just received a $371.5 million gift to support their engineering department, which I think puts the $50,000 extra contribution in perspective. So I both appreciate it, and I hope that as a community we continue to remind Cornell how the many ways, both financial and otherwise, that they can be supportive of us.
I don't know if my board colleagues were stating to address it in curriculum. Not that I'm asking a question, the dual enrollment, but what I'd like to also recommend, first of all, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. What I would like to also recommend is that the administrative staff look into like historically what happened. Why that is not being offered to us at this time. When was it offered previously and all? So that, because we just had a curriculum committee meeting this afternoon and another one is a month from now. So to start the investigative work as to that, because soon it's going to be time to start getting classes set for 26, 27.
My schedule's for tomorrow. Any other board responses? Similarly, then I'll just echo, thank you again, fantastic. And I will double down on what Karen is saying. While of course there should be a conversation of curriculum, we do not have to wait until curriculum. It can be something that we can get an update on at the next board meeting to at least have some historic perspective of where we're at, how we got there, and then proceed from there. So like a lot of issues that come our way, trust me that there will be some further investigation about how to proceed. And whether it's even in our control or not in our control as well, but there'll be some investigation. Appreciate it. Regarding our other comments this evening, I will wait till that agenda item is addressed.
So congratulations, Meg.
If there are no other board responses, we will go to our student reps. It's good to see everybody.
Yeah.
And there.
You guys want to start or should we start?
You guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Well, happy snowy week, snowy day, snow. Gonna go off script for a second. I think as a student reps as a whole, we'd be in deep support of getting Cornell in classes, getting students in Cornell classes, getting students engaged as a school that prides ourselves on getting out of the classroom and getting into the community. That's something that I think as board reps, as a community, we'd be really supportive, and any way we can help figure that, even if it's just making sure students know that this is an option to them, I think we'd be on board for that. On script though, over Regents Week, we had our parent teacher conferences. We're the only secondary school to do them, I believe. Yeah. And we do ours a little bit differently, probably from what you know. We sit down with our family group leader, which is again similar to a homeroom teacher, and our parents, of course, and the students lead that conference, and just in a classroom we sit down, and rather than just like a review of what's been going on, of like your report card and whatnot, it's a celebration of your semester. We have bagels, coffee, and cookies, and little snacks, and there's people tabling out in the halls, and there's science projects for all the parents to come look at. And like on a personal note, I left mine feeling really joyful, like going through my accomplishments and my struggles from the semester in a really honest way. And I've just found to be a very beneficial check-in point for the year, both with like my parents there, so we can, and my FIM group leader who knows me on a very personal level, just so we can all see how it's going, see what's going on. And again, as we've all seen tonight, the ITA contract is up for ratification today. As a student body who's been involved and following this whole process, we wholly support this contract. I've said this before the board before, but we well and truly love our teachers at LICS. There's a couple in the room tonight. We hope to see this contract ratified tonight. We want our teachers to have a new contract that supports the needs of being a teacher in Ithaca, New York. With that, I'll pass it on.
All right. Okay, so we've got some teachers having babies, and that's really, really exciting. We've got our gym teacher Nina and our social studies teacher Aurora, and they're both going to be such amazing moms, and I'm so excited. Although it does mean that we're going to miss out on them for a little while, which is a shame, but
new contract, make it a little easier for
I'll say we were talking a little bit about, we just had an advisory council meeting, which is the body that brings together all of the stakeholder groups in LACS, students, staff, former students. And we were talking a little bit about PBATs. So some of the PBATs happened over Regents Week. PBATs, for those who don't know, stand for performance-based assessment tasks, and they're these big and like essays and presentations that we perform to a group of raters, and it's our replacement for regents. So it happens in 4 main academic areas. Yes. And I guess one of my teachers said something that I thought was pretty interesting. I mean, PBATs, we can complain about them all we want, but as she pointed out, there is a big difference between a kid coming out of their PBAT presentation and a kid coming out of a standardized test. And that's noticeable and pretty awesome. Friends of LACS is our sort of coherent alumni network that got together after the 50th reunion 2 years ago, and they're the ones who supplied the bagels and the breakfast at the conferences. They're doing such fabulous work, and coming up in just 2 days, they're doing a desserts and dialogue event on the 29th from 6 to 7:30 at LACS. for anybody in the community who wants to come in and just talk about LACS and the sorts of futures that it holds for students. And I think it's a fabulous event. There's food, obviously, as in the name. And I think it's really sweet. They do a lot of really wonderful like fundraising work for us as well. So a lot of the money that they raise can go towards our trips and other pursuits. And finally, I wanted to say, relating to the topic, one of the things discussed in last meeting, I was looking at the report for the demographic study, and I think it would be valuable to get some information from building leaders and teachers in those spaces to figure out sort of the reality of the capacity assertions. I think like, yeah, I think it would be valuable to get a little bit of that sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Like anecdotal data, I guess.
We're on boots on the ground kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right, so last time I came to this meeting, I talked about the Lightning Thief. That's our musical for this year. So we're at currently week 4 of 7 weeks of rehearsal. I know, coming up real quick. Not a whole lot of turnaround time. We just finished Act 1 rehearsal tonight. I wanted to reiterate what Julian was saying a little bit. I, as well as the other board reps, really do support this new contract. Not a whole lot to say that hasn't already been said, but also I'll spare you, but I want to share my support. Lastly, I want to inform you all of the sad passing of our school's founder, Dr. Dave Lehman. So he's the founder and the namesake of our school. He was the principal of our school for a good 30 years and had ever since been involved in the school. But more than just a principal, he was truly a member of the community. He was like, he did everything. I don't know how to explain it better than that. I mean, there's this beautiful vignette on his like a typical day in the school. I think Julian had that.
Yeah.
You wanted to read it out? Sure, you
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was recently in the LACS archive that Cornell holds for us, and in the 1984 first edition of the Footbook, our version of a handbook, a student wrote us a vignette on what Dr. Dave's day looked like, and I thought it'd be a nice piece to share to the board tonight to give you an idea of what this man meant to our school. Entitled Dr. Dave Lehman. Yes, ACS does have a principal, Dr. Dave Lehman, who also teaches one class each cycle. What else does he do? Well, a quote, typical day, if there ever is such a thing at ACS, might include the following. Dr. Dave arrives at 7 a.m., unlocks the front office, turns on the photocopy machine, fills and plugs in the hot water pot, answers a couple of phone calls from a student and a parent about being sick and having to help their aunt move. Then he helps the custodian load all the milk into the cooler. Then he checks out a basketball for the students to use in the gym, goes over the tentative budget plans with the head of our budget committee, gives first aid to a student who got hurt, holds a conference with a parent and a student and a family group leader, checks the ball back in, makes some phone calls to different members of the central administration, puts the food on for lunch in the kitchen and turns on the oven to warm the hot stuff, observes a class and provides some written feedback, observes a counseling appointment with a student trying to decide whether to stay in school or not, helps a staff member break up an argument between a brewing fight and talks with the students to help them cool down, serves lunch and washes pots and pans, takes a tour of the building and grounds to see all is calm, stops to chat with some students in the smoking area. It was 1984. Returns to the office to interview a prospective new student, administers first aid to a staff member who just cut his thumb, returns phone calls to the probation department and assistant superintendent, meets with the director of the daycare center about the use of the kitchen, and is called the office for a phone call from a parent whose daughter has run away from home, holds a conference with a teacher about plans for a purchase and use of printers for the computers, checks in with the custodian about clogged soap dispensers in the men's room, unlocks the science storage room, and stops in the dark room to watch student-made film, returns to the office to write 2 brief memos to members of central administration, calls a parent about tonight's steering committee meeting, then leaves for the secondary principals meeting at the board building, remembering to unplug the hot water pot on the way out. Thus, in general, Dr. Dave tries to share his administrative, quote, power and duties with other staff, students, and parents while serving as a support person to everyone, and a school's liaison to the central administration, school board, the general public. this man did everything, and we have a lot.
If there was one thing that could have been taken from our 50th reunion, it was that this man was a legendary once in a million leader that truly had a lot of impact on a lot of people. I mean, you could still use his legacy still like walks the halls if for lack of a better term, our school will really miss the man.
That's all from us.
Thank you, LACS, Ithaca High School.
Okay, we hope you guys clear your calendars for February 7th, because that is our STEM open house where a bunch of people, a bunch of the STEM clubs from IHS will be attending. And then also, I think, SWE from Cornell, so Society of Women Engineers, will also be hosting their robot there. And hopefully Code Red will also be running our robot if it works at that time. Hopefully. But yeah, guys, please come. It's 1 to 4 p.m. February 7th at the Q Gym, and it could also be in the trailers. We'll move around those 2 spots. But also to touch back on the Cornell dual enrollment, I was reading an article on Cornell Chronicle 5 days ago, and they said that new initiatives include an effort to offer dual credit courses to qualifying Ithaca High School students beginning next fall. So hopefully that is a true thing. We'll see. And then also, yeah, please ratify the contract, guys. I think for like all of the teachers and all of the Ithaca High School students to say that we really love our amazing teachers, and please ratify it to make their lives even more amazing. Yeah.
So this weekend we're sending a lot of people to All State Band up at Ithaca College. So these students last spring went and auditioned for All State Band at the NISMA Festival, and it's in the double digits. I think the number that we're sending, which is a lot of people to send to All State. There's only a few hundred across the entire state that get selected for choir, bands, and jazz band total. So it's a really big deal. The concert will be on Saturday. I'm not sure what time, but that's something you can look up if you just look up NISMA All State Band times. So last week we had our midterms week, our Regents week, and student council had study booths in the library. And so we helped out a lot of students, especially freshmen and newer students, to big standardized exams like that. And that went very well. Last week we had a band game night. So all of the Ithaca bands, the choir, the orchestra, and both the bands came together and had a game night, played a bunch of games. That was really fun. And then we are still working on the cell phone survey to bring back to you guys. Hopefully that'll be released in the next month. We got to talk about it in some out of here meetings. And my last thing for you guys is, I know you all know my views on the ITA contracts, and I feel like I've talked at you enough, but I just want to say one more time, on top of everyone else, that I really hope the contract is ratified. Meaning everyone at IHS feels the same way. Thank you.
Thank you. Board responses.
Thank you for the lovely tribute to it, that was really nice to hear. Also, Julian, I love that you brought up student-led conferences, and I want to say actually there are other schools that actually are doing that as well.
Yeah.
And it's a really great thing, and I'm glad you highlighted it, and I appreciate hearing how powerful that is for you. So thank you.
Other board responses.
Yeah, that someone had mentioned about the enrollment study that we did, that we talked about last board meeting. Emily, thank you. We're going to have further discussion around that at a future board meeting. And the tribute to Dr. Lieberman was very good. I was quite wondering, the students smoking, were they inside or outside?
They had a corner back in the day. In that same book, it said there was a little, you had to pay a cigarette to a guy if he wants to go during class. So they had it was whole system.
Some things about LACS we should just not say.
It was the 80s.
Yeah. 90s as well. Before moving on, I will take it as an opportunity. It was 30 years ago that I interviewed here in the city school district, coming from Rochester in a school called School Without Walls, which also tried to do and disrupt some sort of standard traditional forms of education that they felt does not reach all students. And I had the great pleasure of interviewing with Dave Lane, who became a dear mentor to me. I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Dave for 7 years when it was the alternative community school, working closely as an assistant to the principal, a role that he advocated for to make sure that we could fully educate students who were being marginalized, not only as a visionary and as someone who was dedicated to the democratic process, even when it became messy, especially when it became messy. I feel honored and privileged that I had the chance to work directly with Dr. Dave. When Dr. Brown gave me a call to give me the news, thank you, Dr. Brown, because you knew what it meant to me, and you knew that you asked me to sit down before you gave me the information. And my immediate thought was to Judy Lehman as well as the whole Lehman family. And I know that there will be plans to rightfully honor Dr. Dave's legacy, not just at Ithaca, not just at the Lehman Alternative Community School, but as the national and international educational force that he was. And to our LACS students, thank you for that tribute. And I'm saying to our community personally, I can testify to what a phenomenal educator and what a caring educator Dr. Dave was. So was not planning on sharing that today, but felt it was time. So thank you all very much. Sometimes a pause is necessary before we go on with our agenda. We will continue on with our agenda. The next agenda item is the consent agenda. We will entertain motions.
And move to approve all consent agenda items listed in the consent agenda, consideration of accounts, personnel reports, students, and minutes of previous meetings presented.
Second.
Moved by Adam, second by Jacob. Discussion, questions, debates, conversation. Hearing none, we will call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Abstentions? Emily and you're all set, Tricia?
Yeah.
The motion carries. That brings us to the superintendent report / announcements. And Dr. Brown.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Professor. And I wish to continue like you, I love Dave Lehman. And you can be a superintendent here, but you're not really superintendent unless Dave Lehman co-signed. And people don't know this. The first time I've said it publicly, I think I told you, my first week on the job, he spent about 2 full days with me before he could give me his endorsement. And I learned a lot from that brother. And one of the things I want to quote him to get to what I really wanted to share tonight. He said to me in that first meeting in that office over there, I will co-sign you being superintendent here. You know, he wasn't on the board at hiring, but I'll co-sign you being superintendent here if you remember, process is always more important than the product. And for the folks who know Dave Lehman, y'all know what he means by that. And as I'm thinking about the collective bargaining process we've just gone through, and in the back of my mind, and my team heard me say it a lot, the process is going to be most important here. We will get to a product. I've gone through 5 different contract negotiations with ITA, and the product was important for us then, but this time we knew we needed to focus on the process. And I'm with y'all tonight because I am very happy about not only the process, but the product too. Just by the sheer number of national and state publications that have reached out to us, and I know I've seen what NICET has covered as far as the process, but you're going to be getting a lot of other calls, Captain, because School Bus Association, the National Superintendents Association, there are about 6 other major organizations who want to cover the process. And while we knew what we were doing was novel, I didn't know quite how novel it was. And folks they waited until now before reaching out because they wanted to see if it was going to work. All right. I think people were waiting for the train wreck to do something like we just did publicly. And what folks have shared with me already is not only did we do it publicly, with about 100+ hours of conversation, both online and offline. but it's now up there for everybody to see. So I've been contacted by various universities that are training administrators right now, asking if they can use it to train administrators and folks on collective bargaining. I don't know why they're asking if it's up there publicly, but anyway, they're asking for permission. And a shout out to our communications team, because you can go in, you can type in a word and find where we're talking about certain items, all the minutes are there. What we did as far as a process, long after we're gone, people are going to talk about what we did, what I hope will be a process that will be used across our state. But for us, it was just part of what we did. We knew we needed to be transparent. We knew we needed to talk about this for everybody to hear. And I'm hearing Dave Blayman. The process is going to be more important than what we ultimately land on as far as the product. And yeah, but the product is cool too. Now, I've been here where, and Bob would always remind me of this too, and I'm going to say it now because I'm nearing, I won't be here much. Bob said, there's always more of them than it is of us. Because I've sat in this seat, and I've sat in that room where it's me and or Bob, or maybe 4 or 5 other administrators, and there are hundreds of other folks, if y'all know what I'm talking about. And because of that process that we've had in the past, typically when we're presenting a contract to the board, I support this, but it's one-sided. And I don't know how mutually beneficial everything is, but it's a collective bargaining agreement. We agreed on some things. Both sides gave some things, but yeah, this is very supportive of the bargaining unit. This case, and this time, I feel like this is, for the first time in my career, very mutually beneficial. There were some concessions, some disagreements. Both sides gave us some things, but there's some things in this contract that I hope will be ratified that I'm very excited about. Very excited about when it comes to management rights. As a person who's been managing school districts for 20 plus years, I think I have some credibility when I think about management rights and what's good and what's not. And I have a team with about 120 years of collective management rights experience who would say the same. This is a good contract for management, and it's a good contract for our educators. See, this contract, if ratified, puts our educators, as far as compensation, in the top tier of our region. I've done the formal analysis of the market. So anybody who wants to talk about market analyses, you won't know more about that than I do, or Bob and Kieran or Zach, because we've used every every artificial intelligence and form that we can think of. We put all the data, we've read contracts, we spent our summer reading contracts. So we know what the market is asking for. And I can say with much confidence, our contract puts our compensation model at the top tier of our region and our competitor. Not in the middle, not in the median, but in the top tier. And the ways in which we're going to compensate, moving to a step lane system, as a person who's been holding the line here, like every superintendent before me, for generations now, that we're not going to go to step lane. I now understand step lanes ways I didn't before, and I know that it's mutually beneficial. The ways in which we framed it. And this is where I think our educators and teachers, I'm a teacher too, and I've already taught. It's been a long time since I've been in a kindergarten classroom. I don't want to go back anytime soon. I'm a teacher too, so I know what it's like when you talk about working conditions, and I live with one. Who talks about when can I go to the restroom, my planning time? Like, I hear that all the time, not just when I sit in front of 100 of y'all telling me you need better working conditions. So when we think about working conditions, hearing 80 plus proposals around how to increase and improve working conditions, I'm now more educated. And so is our community. And the shifts that we made, Meg talked about it tonight. Other folks have talked about some of the things we made shifts towards are mutually beneficial for our entire organization as well. So if you want to go talk about this contract, I know more about this contract than any other one. And so does my team, because of the process we've gone through to get it to y'all. And I can now say that the product is one that puts us as one of the most competitive and most attractive school districts. There's a reason why we increased the cap on who can bring their kids here, because everybody don't want to come. This is one of the best school districts in not only in our state, but our nation. And I think this contract represents it. And it's a mutually beneficial one. And I will say that to anyone. And we can afford it. In the next few months, we're going to be talking about the finances. Not only is this contract, we can afford this contract, we are positioning ourselves as an organization to do some really cool things over the next few years in addition to this contract. And thank you, Dr. Blaylock, for your leadership of a finance committee. I've never had, well, Mr. Ainsley and Mr. Granger would do this, but you did that this summer. You sat with us all summer when you could have gone on vacation with your pencil and an eraser, helping us look at numbers as one of the top economists in the world. I appreciate you. And Sean, when I came to you about doing this publicly, you could have said no. And you said yes. And you sat there at that table with your mama one time, hearing this. So a shout out to the board for engaging in a process that you didn't have to, helping us do the work to present a product. And Dave, that's for you, bro. Because 16 years later, after those 2 days of spending time with this young superintendent who didn't know what he was doing at the time, you co-signed me to be at a place where at 16 years in, I can put forth something to our community that I feel like it's not only legacy work, but it's historic. And for that, I am very proud of. And I will turn my time over back to the board now for you to talk about it. But I hope that you support me and our teachers in ratifying this particular agreement. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I should note that Dr. Brown is legally required to promote the contract. And with that being said, because I know Dr. Brown, it didn't come from that place. That's true feelings about how he believes what this work means, what this contract means. So I'm very thankful for you sharing in that way. That will move us to our agenda item. The next agenda item is agenda item 11.1, which is the ITA contract ratification. To follow process, if it's okay by the board, we should move to the agenda item and then engage in discussion, debate, conversation. So we will entertain motions.
I move to ratify and approve memorandum of agreement with the Ithaca Teachers Association.
So that's it.
Do we want to do rock, paper, scissors?
I will give this one.
So moved by Aaron, second by Adam. Discussion, debate, conversation, dialogue, questions.
All happen. I wrote something down because I've been thinking about this for like a very, very long time. And deleted most of it. So this is what I have left, just so I remember. I'm excited to vote in favor of this resolution, and yet I am doing so with some reservations. On the balance, I'm voting yes because I believe the pay increases for our teachers is incredibly important and very, very well deserved. We have been assured by Dr. Brown and his team that we can afford the costs associated with a number of the provisions in this contract. From the financial information that has been provided to the board, it looks like we can. However, I have many unanswered questions about the potential impacts of the reallocation of monies and use of the district's reserves. Therefore, through my role on the board, I am committed as ever to be intentional about the ways in which I contribute to the oversight of this district, continue to clearly monitor its projected revenues and expenses, and work in partnership with the executive team to seek and support innovative strategies for cost savings and revenue increases. Aside from that, I just want to say congratulations to the teachers and to the district, and I'm very, very excited for you all to have gotten to this point, and thank you for all the work.
Additional comments, questions, discussion?
I'll say, I'm an educator. I am really excited about the vast majority of this contract. That raise, that's a kick-ass raise. It is far beyond what's being given across New York State, and I think it's really well deserved. And so I'm very excited for that. As a teacher and as a principal, I was engaged in step and lane work. I never worked not under a step and lane, and I worked to get those for staff, and I see the difference, like in stability and consistency between not having it and having it. So excited that that's happening. And I'm also just excited about the things for kids, right? Like a longer school day that could hopefully happen down the line. There's a lot to celebrate. I do want to share that, like, within the last week, our legal counsel reviewed the contract and did find a few areas not connected to the major raises, the step and lane, that raised certain financial and legal concerns to me. And so I also understand from the legal counsel that they are likely very straightforward to address. They could be tweaked according to our attorney within a few sentences. So for what it's worth, I personally will be voting against the contract in its current form, because I'm 100% confident that after one brief bargaining session, these concerns could be addressed, and then we could ratify the contract right after. That said, if the contract gets ratified right now, which I think it's going to be, then I nonetheless hope that the district and the ITA meet to discuss the language. And because I think it's about to be ratified, I just want to say, whether it's now or within a week, which is what I would advocate for, I just want to say congratulations. So much of what Dr. Brown said resonated with me. I'm so proud of the work that the ITA has done, and here's to getting on to the work of educating our children.
Any additional board comments, questions? Concerns?
Yeah, no, I echo Jacob's concern about some of the legal stuff. I mean, I'm gonna be voting for it. I thought about, voting against it for the sake of hopefully trying to clean up some stuff that down the line could cause serious issues for the district. And I know it's all unintended. So, there was good intentions behind the thing that I had concern about from both sides. I'm grateful that it was put in the contract. I just think that the way it was written causes some concern. I'm gonna vote for it, and I'm gonna hope that, the ITA and Catherine could maybe like sit with the executive team and try to figure out if there's, a way to eliminate, I guess, some of the legal concerns that potentially could cause issues down the road. They don't need to, because once it's ratified, but I think in good faith, I hope that there's an opportunity to do that. And yeah, I'll be voting yes, because yeah, I'll vote yes. But yeah.
It's been a long process, and I just want to thank everyone for this process, especially since the superintendent reports to the board, especially with the superintendent, that because I am one of the board members who attend a TST BOCES committee on a monthly basis, whereby board reps from across the 9 schools attend, and quite a few people were surprised when we first started the discussion that, do you know what you're getting involved in? And especially the transparency and publicized like that. So it's been a good discussion, I would say, and as Dr. Brown just said, the product speaks for itself, and I'm in support of the administrative team and ITA for coming to deliver this product to us.
Any other board members? Fantastic, then I will step up on my platform. It's been an honor to serve as a school board member for the past 17 years. I ran in large part because of community members and folks like Dr. Dave on completing my PhD told me that I needed to do something with it and put it to use beyond writing articles that 4 or 5 people would read. And it was an interesting process in that regard. And we've done some things in my time that I feel really good about, and have a lot of pride around changing the narrative of some conversations, having difficult conversations, rethinking the ways in which some either delivery and construction takes place, or even how we just talk about young people. For me, this contract is legacy work. It's historic in a number of ways. I, again, served 7 years in the ITA, so I'm very much aware of what this contract language means. There's a couple of concerns that have been expressed. All of those concerns that have been expressed for me are wins for teachers. There is a way in which we know the teaching profession is under attack nationally, and finding ways in which to offer additional protections in addition to compensation, offering different avenues for voice and collaboration as we proceed what's moving forward is key for me. And it's one of the things that when I'm no longer on the board that I will absolutely be most proud of, is this specific contract and the way in which we went about it. When Dr. Brown and I were having a conversation about a public process, a number of folks, we are both connected in educational spaces. We were told time and time and time again, do not do it. Catherine, I'd assume you and your team heard similar things from some folks, and not everyone, right? But there was a way in which folks had some reservations about disrupting a negotiation process that has been in place for decades. That disruption, from my perspective, has proven to be fruitful. One, because there is an archive of those conversations. If we have debate, discussion about what was said, you go back, you click the link, you take a look at the transcript, you understand the nuance of the conversations that for me were extremely thoughtful, extremely detailed and nuanced about how we do things in a way that pays attention to what our teachers are asking for us in a way that we know is in the best interest of young people. That's a lot to say, but for me, I feel proud about legacy work. I feel proud about a contract that is historic and will mark time in educational spaces. As someone who believes in the importance of archives and time, I'm glad that this is one, should it be ratified, that would do that. So for your team and all the time they put in, for the teachers who are here and the teachers who are not here, who made work happen, Dr. Brown, for your team and the central office and other folks who tirelessly worked on weekends when I would call, you tell me I can't talk to you right now, we're having a session to try to work through things. I'm aware of it's more than 100+ hours of debate, conversation, and rewriting of documents. These contracts don't come along like this without significant amounts of work. And I want to remind folks there's a reason why it's called collective bargaining. And I hope moving forward, we continue to focus on the collective and on the collaboration. So if there are no other comments, we will ask the question. All in favor? All opposed?
I'm excited.
Any? Let's see how it plays out. Any abstentions? The contract is hereby ratified. Congratulations, ITA. At this time, we have other items on our agenda, but we are going to take a 1 to 2 minute break. Not sure how many folks want to stay in the room for the remainder of the agenda. So we'll take a 1 minute break and we'll resume here in a minute.
Congratulations.
Hey guys, I'm not now too. I got to take my.
All right, good folks, we're just going to call our meeting back to order. We have a couple more of agenda items to get through. The next agenda item is agenda item 11.2, which is the curriculum committee charter. This is a conversation that was had. I don't know that I didn't see it on today's curriculum committee agenda, so I don't believe it was discussed on today's curriculum meeting. But I know there's been a conversation about the curriculum committee charter from before, and I can let folks know why I asked for it to be on the agenda, but maybe it's better to begin with a little back history and how we got here. If that works for you, Jacob is the chair of the curriculum committee, so I'll turn it over to Jacob.
Yeah, sure. Hi. So starting with the curriculum committee, our very first meeting was about what should our focus be. We thought that having a vision statement would be equal. So we drafted something, got feedback from all the committee members, and then discussed it with Catherine from the ITA, who I believe told the teachers. You've got a lot in your mind right now. She pulled the teachers, discussed it with Mary Grover, who pulled like I believe families. Maybe since then we're talking about the curriculum committee vision, the charter. So then we came back in our last meeting, sort of voted on adopting it. The intention behind it was to go, well, like essentially, like at least for me, I can only speak for myself, was based on the, in my opinion, really spectacular work that Mary's been doing to sort of lead to a more, in my opinion, equitable experience across schools that Catherine's been very supportive of. The idea that, as we saw presented this evening, for those of you who weren't here, it was a great meeting, watch it. We had a couple of amazing ELA folks from Boynton and DeWitt talk about the way they're approaching curriculum and assessment, whereas in the past it might have been, for lack of a better term, like a somewhat scattered model, right? It's like different things happening depending on where you are as a student, leading to a more shared and common experience. So that was the idea, is us having a vision statement that then allows us to ask questions like, what's working in terms of trying to provide a more equitable experience for students? What could be better? And also, I think maybe most importantly, given our role as a board, what as a board can we do to support from a policy angle, from a budgetary angle? So that's the intention behind it. So like I said, what you see in front of you is based on feedback from, at the very least, the committee, Catherine, Mary, and idiot teachers or families who filled out the survey. Is there any other context, Mary, that I'm forgetting that would be helpful to share? Okay.
Trisha, can we pull it up on the screen as well? So we can all see. I mean, we may already have it. I know it's on this piece of paper, but not everyone in the room has access to it. So I first became aware of the charter while attending the tail end of a curriculum committee, in which it was referenced and asking teachers, or I'm not sure who it was, but asking folks. You got mapping some questions, but using the curriculum committee charter at that point, it was called, to frame some of the questions. And for me, it raised two different, for lack of a better word, concerns. One, a committee is not able to act on behalf of the board without a full board vote. And so even if we take a look at the policy committee, for example, the policy committee will review a policy and then bring it to the full board. If we take a look at the finance committee, they'll take a look at the consent agenda items, and then they'll bring it to the full board for a vote. And so part of it is just a process, right? So if a committee comes up with a charter, that is well within the realm to be done, and for that charter to become the official part of the committee's charter, it would need full or majority vote approval. Secondarily, for me, as I was reading it, it does not currently read as a charter, it reads as a curriculum statement. And so I wanted clarity on both. One, to make sure the board had a chance to ask some questions and participate in the process for a majority vote. And then second, for me, would be some recommendations of language changes to turn it into charter language, as opposed to what I see as one board member, a statement about curriculum. And so those are the two items that, for me, that were of most importance.
And just to quickly respond, I was surprised and in retrospect excited when you shared this with me. It was something that I hadn't thought about, and we have a pretty sweet board, so I welcome, and I assume you committee members do as well, input and feedback from the board. So we just want to support the good work that's happening.
We do have a template. Our committees have not used the template for charters that's been created. It's something for us to consider moving forward, maybe at the first meeting of a committee. And I should also make mention that committees only exist by majority vote of the board. So the board authorizes any committees that we may have. And so for this is sort of connected to that same idea as well, that committees make recommendations to the full board, and then the board acts on a majority vote. So I don't know which part to address first. If folks have additional questions, comments, their own thoughts, that's where we find ourselves.
Are there other committee charters that I can see as an example?
We do not. The only committee charters that I believe we have now that are officially been adopted by the board are for our advisory councils and advisory committees. So as an example, to hear what you're saying, one of the ways in which I would think is that the charter of the curriculum committee is to support whatever this may be, right? Or is to work towards this. That's the way in which I think of a charter, but I'm sure other people may think of a charter differently. That I'll share.
Thank you. The process, should we, are we doing a motion and discussing, or how would you like to approach this? Or is that for me to?
No, we've been doing, I think, is it on as an action item? It is, so to follow with process, yes, we should entertain motions and then continue the conversation.
I move to approve the following curriculum committee charter as presented. Should I read it or?
Sure, begin the record.
Okay, regardless of school, educators provide students with a consistent and shared experience at the ICSD. Students will be part of a safe and supportive environment that focuses on learning. Educators will provide students with active engagement in common curriculum and instructional strategies.
Moved by Adam, seconded by Jacob. Additional discussion, question, conversation.
Well, I was looking at the board committees and I just want to ensure consistency across the board because I haven't seen a charter for all of the other committees and I'm wondering why are we doing one now? And if we are going to do, let us be consistent and get a charter in place for each and every board committee because as a board committee, we're supporting the work of the district. So therefore, the board cannot have like members on these committees as a standalone. You have to have district employees as representation to tell us and guide us along. So
So, and for what it's worth, it was the first agenda item we had. So I think the reason it's coming now is because Sean most recently had brought to my attention something that should be brought.
I'm wondering about just the language that we're using. I didn't, when I was present for that discussion, I wasn't thinking of it as a charter and the way that we talked about it was more of a kind of like vision statement for it, which I think is very, very different and less formal, thank you, than a charter. I don't really personally I haven't really thought about it at all, so I guess I don't really feel like a charter is all that necessary, but I do very, very fervently believe that all of our committees should be on the same page when we start and have it agreeing upon a kind of vision for how we're going to work together that year and what issues we want to focus on and the things that we want to think about. I think that I like informally did that by meeting with the HR committee and we kind of talked about those things and decided about kind of where we wanted to focus our attention. I would have loved to have kind of more formally like written it out as a vision statement, but I think that that's more of just kind of the committee members are coming together and kind of agreeing, which I think is actually a step forward from what my experience has been on the board, which has really been like has felt a little bit like a lone committee chair who like I often don't even know like what is going to be on the agenda until everyone else knows what's going to be on the agenda, if I'm on that committee. And in past committees, like I've, deciding what the topics are going to be don't seem to be like kind of like a group effort and sometimes don't even seem like they have a rhyme or reason or you talk about something and then you never really come back to it and therefore never make progress because you're jumping around all the time. And I think that a kind of vision or mission statement for that year would really help kind of guide all of the work. And I took what you were doing as that and see it as that still, I guess. And I think that it is very clearly guiding the kinds of things that are being talked about in the meeting. So I guess all of that to say, I don't think that the entire board would necessarily need to agree on just on a vision statement for how the committee members want to approach the work. We already have those conversations all the time and don't include the rest of the board. And maybe like making it more formal with a charter is complicated unnecessarily, unless you disagree that that's what we were trying to do.
So charter, I think you first used the word charter, because I called it a vision, so maybe it would just be helpful for me to understand the distinction. But I thought that was just a synonym.
I don't think I called it a charter. I think it came to me as being called a charter and I started using that language.
For what it's worth, it's a vision statement. That's what it was called on the document, the ICSD curriculum committee vision statement. I personally am indifferent as to whether it's like if
I don't think we can be indifferent. I think as only saying that they serve two different purposes.
Yeah, so can someone help me understand the differences?
Trisha, I just emailed you a copy of the charter template. Can you click on that email and
Yeah.
show it up on the screen to give some clarification? Then I'll try to answer your question more directly as well as respond to Emily's comments as well. Do you see it? Do you have it there?
I have it. I'm gonna bring it up.
Just a guy.
So this was a template. I did not create this template. I take no, I would love to own creating this template. And I just emailed it to all board members as well. I did not create the template, though I do know it was borrowed from what other districts do when they create committees. Part of the idea is creating a committee charter to help guide the work that the committee is doing for the remainder of the year. So this is an example of what a committee charter could look like by way of priorities, by what the charge of the committee is, which we do not necessarily do and have not done in our district, which we are ironically required to do for special advisory councils, right? It cannot be passed without a charge being clearly articulated in the resolution. And so there are some examples of what a charter could look like. If we go back to the idea of a vision statement, that causes me equal concern that a committee should not have the sole authority to create a vision statement without approval of majority vote. And I'll use this particular one as an example. I, as one board member, disagree with this vision. And so I'd ask the question, then where is the opportunity to express disagreement? If I think this is headed the district in a direction that I do not support as one board member, right? But what is then the process to be like, I don't support this vision?
Go ahead.
I genuinely, like, I feel like this question is gonna sound leading, but it's not meant to be. So if other curricula, like if other committees do not have a stated vision or charter, then I guess I don't even know what to disagree with, right? Like, I don't know what to agree or disagree with. Like,
Yeah, for me, the example would be that other committees which may or may not have a charter are not taking any action without board majority vote. So the finance committee, whether it has a vision or not, is still looking at things and presenting recommendations to the board, right? The HR committee is still making recommendations to the board. There's no action that's taken. We have a vision statement that's telling our curriculum leaders that this is the direction we're headed. When we as a board have not had that conversation, then I have questions about the process. And if we're using the vision, saying our vision indicates that we want a consistent and shared experience. If we're asking folks to build curriculum in that way, at what point in time does the board have that conversation about, is that the way in which we want to approach our work? And it may be. So it's not saying it's not, or again, majority vote works, and then that's the path we're going down. But a committee shouldn't have the ability to decide a vision without majority vote.
So when you say action, you mean the creation of a vision?
I'm saying
Because I don't think the curriculum committee has taken what I would consider to be action, but maybe I'm not understanding.
so. The meeting, this is a very specific thing, and my apologies, but this is part of the way our democracy gets. It is what it is, right? I attended a meeting, and Jacob, as the chair, you asked an educational leader, a curriculum leader, how does your work fit within this vision? That to me begins to direct the work that's being done. That's not simply a vision statement. That's saying we're headed down this path. I'm expecting you to head down this path. Please tell me how your work matches this vision when we as a board have not agreed upon a vision.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah, I think that there's a difference between like a vision for a work plan about like the intentions of like what to pursue versus a decision about like stating a belief system, which I'm hearing you now is like different. Like when I thinking about it from the HR perspective, it was about deciding what, like making an assessment about what we were seeing in the district and making an agreement together about what we wanted to pursue and learn more about,
Facts.
which is different from, I hear what you're saying. It's different from saying, and we believe that we need to recruit teachers this way, and we're gonna work towards that. I can say, so I agree with you. I can also say that I don't actually, in general, I haven't seen that the curriculum committee in the time that I'm actually present at the meetings, that it's actually doing that it actually is. I took it as it guiding more about the questions that were being asked and sought, but I hear what you're saying in the way that it's written. If it would give the impression to executive team members that it was indicating a belief system or a direction in which to go, then I agree with you.
I mean, I think that in all the work that we do, and I'm saying this and I feel bad it's on camera, but we have goals and guides that are very distinct to our district. And so creating something specific to one committee without really just referring to what we already have in place as a board and as a district does not feel right. And so I've been in these meetings, but I often miss the top of them because they start at 4:45 and a lot of us have jobs that conflict with that start time, so I've missed some of these conversations. But I will say, oftentimes the committees that I've been on, there's no vision statement. That is our guide, and then we choose priorities based on the needs of that year while working with admin or whoever else is part of those committees. And so the priorities are there, but a vision that is not aligned with what's already there, it doesn't really mesh. And I think that, we've talked in board development sessions about goals and those sorts of things. I think that's a bigger conversation. I think that this and deciding on this right now is premature and not really, I feel like there's so many other things that we can be focusing on rather than these 3 sentences.
I do want to quickly respond. The conversation about the creation of it, both in the curriculum committee meeting as well as with Mary and Catherine, was very much focused around these goals. I do want to distinguish between goals and vision. The reason, like, those goals are for the entire district, and given our very limited scope of work, curriculum and assessment, our language was built up of culture of excellence, equity in particular.
So like, push
I
this
just
one.
wanna
No, I
highlight
agree. This is the part of the conversation, right? We're having it in public, as we rightly should. The first sentence says, regardless of school, educators provide students with a consistent and shared experience, which in some regard is harkening to the fact that some folks may believe that is not currently happening, and we are trying to make that happen. That is an action step. That is not a vision. That's saying, regardless of school, we're going to do this. We may already do that now anyway, but I'm also aware that there is some feeling among some folks that we're not doing that now, and that we should be doing that. And that may be the want and the will of the board. And so my job is not to stop the want and the will of the board. My job is to say, board, is this what we want to do? And if the majority of the board says yes, then we keep it moving. And if the majority of the board says no, then there's a different conversation to be had about what that looks like. So I don't want people to mistake. I hope I'm trying to be clear that I am focused on the process. And then I have a personal, as one individual item or individual board member, about the direction. But for me, it's really much more about the process. Like, how do we do this? If this is going to direct the direction that we're going, then I want us to have a conversation as a board. Of course, that conversation should begin in committee. And the committee says, here's our recommendation, much like all other committees do, right? Like, facilities does not decide what a capital project is. Facilities decide that we should do a capital project, hands it to the board and says, let's debate, y'all, how do we want to go about this? But it doesn't start moving, like, it doesn't start doing that without us having a conversation, or again, a majority vote.
Yeah, I would just add, I mean, I guess at the same time, I agree with what you're saying. I think the way committees tend to work is that there's a chair of a committee who has a certain philosophy maybe, or an ideology or a lens with which they're gonna, conduct things, and then that's where the questions kind of come from. They work with the administration. Like when I chaired curriculum for a couple of years, maybe I had certain interests in certain topics and I worked with Mary Grover or Lily Talcott, whoever was there at the time, and then brought things to committee and we talked about things. So I think that we also have to acknowledge that there's some some independence that gets built in based on who's in charge that particular year. And I think I think what you're bringing up is a good thing. Like we should flesh this out because, because there is some independence, and there is a question, and then I think you raised a good question about action steps. And I understand what you're saying about this sort of like being an influential lens that could shape things, and if it's shaping something, it becomes an action step. And then to that end, would we want to, as a board, sort of look at each committee, like have each committee propose what they want the vibe of their committee to be? I think the language of charter, versus vision statement and all that, I think that might be a technicality in this case. I don't think anybody was thinking about literally the word charter. But maybe, and then to propose that and then have the board vote on those and then have clear statements for every committee, which I know is a lot to ask, but maybe that's appropriate given the tone of this conversation. Have that.
Yeah, and I think Emily said something similar, has said something similar for some time, right? About understanding what each committee's purpose is and why it exists and what it's charged to do. So that part, I think we're probably much more in agreement around process, and I do think moving forward, it'd be best for the board to sort of establish whatever that is, whatever that process is. It would just take care of a lot of uncertainty in that regard. It still doesn't get to some of the things that Emily was talking about, which I appreciate as well. Like as a committee member, I'm not aware what's going to be on the agenda until I get the agenda. And so, Adam, you're right. A lot of committee chairs have a lot of autonomy in that regard. And so that may be another topic for us to discuss as well. Like maybe it's collective agenda setting, right? There's a number of things that should and probably could take place. And so I want to be clear that this is not me critiquing this specific thing. It just raised the process question for me that we should clarify if we're going to move forward in this way.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, I just want to highlight while I facilitated and discussed the Jacob Chiprin vision statement. So I am open to the conversation. I think I would just highlight, I think many people have told me in my time at the board, to stay within, it's not like stay within the lane, right? But be aware of what is the board purview and not. So the big thing I do want to highlight is all of the language here comes from a conversation with the committee and building upon the work that the team is doing. So I actually think that might be an instance where I don't know if it's the understanding, but it's just the direction, the instructional leadership team of the district is moving faster than the board in some instance of what they're doing. And so the intention here, just for everyone, who'll be voting yes, yay or nay on this, is to just solidify, here's what we're seeing happen. We think this is really powerful. I think the work that is happening between Mary Catherine and others is very powerful. So I wanted to highlight that so that our curriculum committee meetings could be supportive of that. So that's the intention here. And I also, for what it's worth, I think it's a great, and I think you were sort of getting at this, Karen, but pardon me if I'm misstating. I think Karen and Sean, you were both getting at this. I love the idea of next year going into the committee structure going, hey, let's make sure that as committees, we've discussed and had an open conversation about what it is, what our intention is in the committee and what our goals are. Hopefully that can be part of the strategic planning, which I had the pleasure of reading the RFP. Thank you. Great acronym, nailed it. But so in short, Sean has given really, I know Sean, you had your specific individual critiques on it, and I'm sure I speak for everyone on the curriculum committee when I say open to others, open to us voting yes on this or no, or giving feedback so we can sort of come back to it, or dropping this as a thing, because either way, I think as individual committee members, we'll all be able to have questions, and no one on the curriculum committee has a goal of taking unilateral action, because that's not our role.
Karen,
Yeah, I'm in favor of dropping this, or, because it should have been a discussion item, not necessarily a motion, because according to the board committee policy that the committee is recommended, and from what I saw when four of you are on the committee, I don't hear a resounding recommendation for this. So, and I want to be consistent across all board committees. If we're going to do a document, a vision chart or whatever, use the template for one committee, we are consistently using it across all committees. And since that discussion isn't happening now, if we set a time that is part of the, I don't even think that would really be part of the strategic plan, but yeah, just to have some sort of consistency, because I've heard even within the conversation now, like was polling done, and who were polled about this language and all. So, yeah, I'm in favor of this not being, there's a motion out there. I won't be voting for this to move forward. It should be a discussion item.
I think I want to just add one more thing as well while I turn off my alarm so it doesn't annoy everyone. That committee chairs change every year. And I appreciate this work, Jacob. But like, if you think like next year, someone else has the committee, I mean, this is a lot of work to put into one statement. And there is so much other work to get done. So I love the idea of a vision, but I think we should focus more on our broad board goals, because every year committee chairs change almost every year. And I think really maybe one of the other things we work on in a board development session is figuring out how to best utilize our time as a board when we're leading committees and have a more general idea so we can focus on what really needs to be done and talk to the admin who are going to be in those meetings. So, you know, with HR, it's Zach, and curriculum, it's Mary, and really sit down and maybe map out, you know, we have a board handbook. What is the best use of our time? Because as board members, it's limited. And we have a lot of work we want to get done. So how do we make sure we're doing this work effectively, listening and getting feedback from educators, admin, students, community, whomever, and really getting the work done? And I think we really probably should spend some time looking at our committee structures, considering the turnover every single year in leadership and what our best practices should be as a board, and adding that into our board handbook. So we're not reinventing the wheel as turnover happens, because vote happens, people move, people change, new ideas come. And how do we actually get the work done? Because there's a lot of work to get done.
I completely agree with every single thing that you just said, but I completely, I'm like, yes, you need to go back to talking about the board goals, talking about them every single year, so that we are not just looking at overarching goals for the district, but that we decide as a board what we hope to focus on and prioritize in that year. And I completely agree that by doing that, we can have a discussion as an entire board about what we want to prioritize in these specific areas that we have committees. And I feel so strongly that we need to be doing that as a full board. I think it's really detrimental to the work for all of the committees to be working in silos like this and not communicating as much as we could be. And I think that you're right, that if we started from that top and everything was kind of informed and fed by that, it would be really effective. And I think that we could actually get more work done. And I also think that it's a really important point that we like turn over every year, like the things that we're working on the HR committee. I really hope it's not gonna get done this year. Like nothing's gonna get done. I sure hope that I can like hand off to whoever is doing it next year and say like, this is what we've been working on, like assuming that everybody still agrees that this is like a topic of interest, like continue it so that at some point you like deliver and finish something. I think that a lot of things like aren't finished, they're just like explored. And I don't mean finished like something concrete, that it could be finished by all deciding we don't want to focus on it anymore or whatever it is, but like to be able to help like see it through. With that said, I also hear Karen and completely agree that this was like very much a topic. Like I know exactly how I want to vote on this. We could end the meeting a lot sooner if we just make that vote and then talk about this like bigger piece later. So I'm also in support of that. Now that I've said my piece.
And then I want to piggyback over what you said, because we're not operating as board committees in silos. I disagree with that because it is my responsibility as a board member to make sure that I'm up to date on all of the committees and what's happening. Does that realistically happen? No, it doesn't always happen, but it is my responsibility. And thank you to our communication team for always summarizing all of our work sessions, the committee, the board meetings and all. If I were to miss anything, it is my responsibility to go back and check. So, and the committees bring forth recommendations and all to the full board. So.
I'm gonna show this because for me, it's related. I would dare say the board should not adopt a committee structure without that committee be given a charge that receives majority vote. So simply saying, I want a policy committee. Okay, that's one thing, but what should the policy committee be charged with? Right, and that becomes the vote, not just whether or not we have a policy committee or the HR committee. That it's not just that we want an HR committee, what do we expect the charge to be? Those other conversations for me are absolutely essential. I agree, right? That how does it then connect back to the larger vision, ideas, mission that the board is trying to accomplish? That's what's being raised for me as I was thinking about this. And again, for me, it's about process, nothing more.
Process more important than product. So for what it's worth, I love this conversation. I think that what you just said resonates a lot with me because I do think, yeah, I mean, again, this is not the Jacob Shepherd vision. This is based on the work that's happening from the district administrators, but administrators change, board members change, and even as you're talking when you're like policy committee, I was like, yeah, like there's so many directions someone can write a policy committee. The charge could be update policies from the 1970s. It could be focus on like the 3 most important. And that is something that I trust inherently every committee chair. And you're right, as I think about every committee, the curriculum committee, it's not like I actually have no idea what the goal is and whether it's a goal that I, as an individual board member, would support. So I don't know if I don't know, do I withdraw or we can vote it down. Like I have no vested interest in like other than you would ask that we raise it, and so I wanted to. I'm intrigued with how the conversation is now. I'm just curious for next steps.
Right. Well, next steps could be, of course, you can withdraw the motion and we can continue on with the agenda. I do want to say one last piece because I know that I have, in my 17 years, at one point in time or another, I know that I've been responsible for this. Let's not underestimate the influence that both the board and individual board members have engaging with whomever, right? That there is influence that happens from the board, right? Both in terms of pushing towards a particular direction. I think a really good example would be what Emily shared. Whatever I choose as chair of the policy committee to put on the agenda or not put on the agenda is influence, right? Like we may never address a particular issue or policy because I chose as the one chair not to put it on. So that's the part about sort of finding a process that seems a little bit more collaborative, but also recognizing that anything that we do needs majority vote.
So then I don't think I made the motion, but I do think we should withdraw it, but I am curious again, then what is the next step to move us in a direction, curriculum committee aside or curriculum committee included, that gets us where we have a clear, stated, agreed upon direction for our things.
Maybe an agenda item. To have another conversation where we can come up with some kind of a structure about how to move that forward. Seems like I don't know.
No. I think that's it. I think we should all spend a few minutes in our next committee meetings taking a look at that charter, even if it's writing a sentence. The charge of the finance committee is to make sure the district's finances are in order. Okay, right? Do we all agree with that? And then we move from there, right? Like I think some sort of statement other than we have a finance committee, right? Like that's the part. Longer term, I see it connected to, again, the RFP for strategic planning. So it may not be something that we address this year, but we're cognizant, aware of it, that there's a disconnect. And we know that at the next reorg meeting that we wouldn't approve committees without some sort of charter. Is it daylight out here? What's the
It's technical for the last hour and a half. Jack finally picked up his phone. Thank you, Zach.
So my humble recommendation would be, if we do have recommendation, would be to withdraw it as a voting item. I don't think there's any reason to vote it down because we're not there, right? To withdraw it as an agenda item and have each committee have a quick conversation, but at least trying to draft a sentence that could be sent to the board so we can figure out where we are. Longer term issues, I think we need some development sessions and or time together for that to happen, or again, it would be part of the RFP.
For what to happen, I'm sorry.
For like deeper conversation.
Oh.
Who made the motion?
I withdraw my vote. I hereby.
Oh, that was so depressing. I second the withdrawal.
Sure. I want to remind folks before we proceed, I said at the reorg meeting that we loosely follow Robert's rule of order. So I'm sure there's a parliamentarian here will say that we did not do that. The strict rules.
The person who usually made the motion can withdraw it. You don't actually need to second that though.
That's
But I can second, right?
Knock yourself out.
But more the idea for me is that we agree with the step moving forward. So if there's a withdrawal, if it's without objection, let's keep it moving and we know it's a conversation we need to engage in. Does that work for everybody? Thank you for that conversation. I'm greatly appreciative.
I agree.
Agenda item 11.3. We are going to have a conversation about accessibility to BOE meetings and beyond.
Yes. So, something just occurred to me in recent meetings, and I'm gonna speak more loudly because this was the catalyst, but there's so much more to this. So, we don't have microphones in here anymore, and I checked with folks, and we can't have microphones because of the space. But when we talk about accessibility and when we talk about best practices, we should. And it got me thinking about our district. Equity and inclusion are not, it's not possible without accessibility. And the thing is, unless you understand what accessibility is and how expansive it is, you're not going to recognize it. And something I've been wanting to do in my time on the board and trying to introduce, and it just kind of kickstarts and then something happens and we just never get there, is figuring out how to really embed accessibility throughout the district. You know, and I think it's really important, and something I speak to often is that, you know, it's not just about disability. I mean, disability does not discriminate, right? And the intersectionality, when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion in this district, when you think about intersectionality and race and sexuality and gender and all of the things, socioeconomic factors, and then you add disability on top of it, it just magnifies what folks are up against. And so I really have been trying to think about ways where we can embed accessibility into everything we do. And I've been on this board for my third term, and I just, you know, I haven't gotten there yet. And so I reached out to Dan and we had a conversation, and we're looking at a few things here. So I'll start with the fact that let's acknowledge that our buildings are aging, right? I remember early on talking about, you know, with Chris, when I was a baby board member, saying, oh, can we get adult changing tables in every bathroom? And you can't, right? Even though that would be a best practice, it is not fiscally responsible or possible. But what we can do, and what I want us to start thinking about, and I think that there are a few things we're already moving on, and then there's some things we can do as a board, is that we need to, speaking of committees and councils, we need to have an accessibility advisory council. And I can work in some a resolution to set that forth for our next meeting and we can vote on. I just want people to think about it now. Because what we need to help in this, in the disability community, it's the phrase, nothing about us without us, right? We need to have voices in our committee meetings, so we're not working in a vacuum. And I can't attend every meeting, but there are other people, there are students, there are caregivers, there are teachers who understand these needs and understand that when we're in a facilities meetings, there's considerations we should be making. Curriculum, there are considerations. Literally everything we do in this district, we should be thinking about accessibility, but unless you live in that world, you're not going to recognize it. And so that's something that I want to start working on and getting that committee going. But some exciting things that we have already is that building condition surveys, we're going to start implementing in those, really assessing accessibility. And instead of just ADA compliance, right, Americans with Disability Act's compliance is just the bare minimum. Tetra Tech is going to look into American National Standards Institute and looking what we could do that can go beyond just compliance. Looking at different standards, looking at what is fiscally feasible, considering that all of our buildings are aging. What can we do as we're aging? What can we do in capital improvement projects? You know, there are things we're doing now. We have 3D printers where we can print signage that also has Braille. You know, how can we embed this in everything that we do? So the capital projects are something to consider, but, and some of our student reps aren't here, but there's been interest from them. Some other things to think about is, as a district, really starting to raise community awareness. As a district, thinking about what we're doing in our spaces. A really good example I'd like to use is CULP. You know, I've been to so many events there as both a board member and a parent in this community. And we just don't think about what we're doing there. Those seats aren't made for larger bodies. There aren't many accessible spaces. Julian, I'm making a note and we'll get to you. I just want to finish because if I stop, my own ADHD brain will not be able to function. So CULP is it's not a great accessible space, right? But what can we do, since we can't just redo CULP, to make it accessible, right? Can we make sure that when we have events there, you're not blocking the accessible spaces up front? You're not blocking ways to access. Can we look into having a reservation system for people who need those spaces? So people aren't just like sitting next to each other, taking up the 3 spaces that you can use if you have a larger body, or the couple of spaces you can use where you can place your wheelchair. I've had this conversation in meetings before. We've talked about doing some expensive analysis of parking lots. Okay, listen, we don't want to have to spend all of our money as a district to do analysis. What if we looked to doing community awareness? Letting caregivers know, like, hey, you know what? When you're at pickup and drop off and you're blocking the accessible disabled spaces, you are stopping someone from being able to get to where they need to go. You are making parents literally show up, and I'm one of those parents. I sometimes have to show up places 40 minutes early so I can get my kid inside safely, right? We need to look and help educate our community to treat each other better. And I say this in a time where, like, when I was thinking about talking about this tonight and everything going on in the world and how it just like, do I even want to talk about accessibility at this meeting with our country just on fire? And I do, because these little acts that we can do to make things more accessible, they allow people like me to be able to speak up more, other caregivers to be able to speak up and go to protest and do other things. So when you're feeling helpless and you wish you could be able to protest, I want you to think, hey, I can do some small little things that can just make our community better, to free up the mental space and mental load to help individuals just live better lives. And that's a form of protest and radical support in and of itself. And so I'm hoping that that makes sense. I'm really excited about this. I'm excited about working with facilities to start looking at this and trying to really embed these practices into what we do as a board. you know, Sean's talking about legacy. I want this to be some of the legacy work that I do. I just can't do it myself. That's why I want to help bring in more voices. So. Any input? Julian, you had your hand up?
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
I mean,
Yeah, you already did it, so you gotta have it.
I keep talking to tell me to stop it, but when well, this is a conversation that the student board reps actually got into a couple months back. This Judah specifically was the one kind of leading the charge on that. I'm not sure if it ever made its way to you. No, he was putting together just a little report on what actually like the day-to-day experience of is what it's like in IHS specifically if you need accessible anything. And then I can't find the paper for the report now, but I do remember the general conclusion was that it is very bare minimum. Compliance is there, but you say it's not what it could be. It is like, yes, it's ADA accessible. Yes, you can get in, but let's say you have to get to a math class all the way to the other side of the building, and you're in a wheelchair. You have one door that you can really use. That's not good. So similarly at LICS, we're a smaller building, so we don't have all the major things, but there are more things we can do. Recently, our previous capital project, we had ramps that made our amphitheater accessible, made our parking lot more accessible. But our elevator goes out of service relatively regularly, and not all of our doors are fully have the push button and whatnot. So there is much more we can do. So, and if I can find that report, I'll try to re-up it to you guys, but Jude also has.
No, and Jude and I are overdue to meet. I've just done very little free time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if I can add, I've seen somebody having to be wheeled in their wheelchair through the snow, all the way around the entire parking lot and soccer field to a door downstairs so that they could get to their class. And because the elevator keeps breaking down, and I think that's like that, as you were saying, that was a very powerful and moving speech that you made about the little things that we can do to make somebody's life better. And obviously, like fixing an elevator is no easy matter. But if just that one thing that affects people every day is, yeah.
I'm in full support of advisory council, and more importantly, as we've been talking about just the other day at the Climate Action Plan Advisory Council, equally so, it's not just a discussion, but the action items. Right? What are some things that we can start doing immediately? You've identified a number, I'm sure, between other groups, we'll be able to identify some things, and so we can work together to that resolution so it has a charge. Going back to our last conversation and try to start identifying various things that we can start doing. And more importantly for me, maybe a continued conversation about actually naming it and raising it far more often in our meetings, right? Because we know this is not the most accessible space itself, right? So we have to have some other conversations as well. So it's okay with the board. I'll work with, well, Aaron, you can also just send it to me, or we can work together about drafting some language.
Yeah.
Or draft the resolution and continue the conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe it's something that every other agenda, that there's another conversation or an update or a report out or something. So again, so it's for me part of it, and I know this is also an ableist perspective where it's visible on the agenda or audible on the agenda where we hear it on a regular basis. So it's not just this conversation, but we keep returning to it. The way to do it is the forefront of, right? Is to keep it on the forefront of our minds. Is that okay by other board members?
And we're going to add documents to accessibility. Everything accessibility, not only physical spaces, but.
Well, that's a very good point. So yeah, and I didn't get to that because ADHD. it's not just wheelchair accessible, right? It's documents, it's, I know that our communications team works very hard, you know, it's teaching teachers to always have alt text on images, so they're screen readers. It's keeping in mind sensory issues, like those lights went on and my body went in, right? It's understanding sensory needs, it's understanding deaf and hard of hearing, you know, there's a spectrum of what accessible means. And I think so often we just think of wheelchairs. It's so much more than that. And that'll be something that goes into the charge and into the work that we do.
I really appreciate the idea of, you know, getting input from people that are experiencing it, like that story right there, you know, highlights what the true pain points are, right? No offense to architects, but like you guys look at like what's code, you know, and then you address a building on like, hey, here are the code deficiencies. The reality is like, where could we best use our time and energy and money, you know, to be the most effective. So I really like the idea of getting community input from the students. The elevator companies are a criminal enterprise. No, it's a monopoly, and it's like
It's a significant problem.
no, it's a huge problem because it is a monopoly. It's like a couple of companies, and it's like a port for a phone. Where like if you don't have the port that fits, you can't have the other company come fix it. So it's elevators are a problem. I'm sure the district is doing their best, but it's
There,
Yeah, we have strict BJN for.
Yeah, no,
it's my, hopefully.
I think we're due for a little bit of signage too.
Yes.
In a lot of places.
Yeah.
Would, sorry.
So, please.
I was gonna ask, like, in our capacity as stewards, would it be useful for us to bring forward some information, talk to some people? I can think of several people just off the top of my head who I know would have immediate actionable
Yep.
ideas who
Yep.
work with this day to day.
yeah.
Yep, and this is gonna be a place again where we will try to create a structure at the board level that helps support this work as well. So that'll be part of the idea behind the advisory council. I saw one hand, someone's gonna speak. So
I appreciated what you said, Aaron. I was curious because you had referenced committee or meetings. Are there any sort of like immediate recommendations you can share for either our full board meetings or?
I mean, I should think about it. It's tough because the space that we're in doesn't allow, again, for microphones, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's this thing where I don't know, the immediate recommendation I would actually just say to everybody is that disability is not a bad word. You know, special education is not a bad thing. I would recommend to all board members to look up universal design for living and learning. Okay. And just start thinking about that and the work that we do. I'm not going to point out specifics for each thing, but it's just, you know, starting to educate yourselves, and I can start sharing some things for us to just think differently about how we're going about what we're doing.
And to connect it to a conversation we just had last week about and ask for the PTA to come speak to us. That's a conversation we have to return to in terms of who are we going to put on an agenda. If no matter how we move there, but that would also include for me something like SEPTA as well. Community collaborators and partners who are involved in this work. So we have to have that conversation about how to.
Right, because even the whatever feedback we get from the students, knowing that Tetra Tech and our facilities admin person that when we do building and evaluation, they go out to principals, they go out to staff to just get feedback. So that it's not just coming to the board, but incorporating everyone involved.
All right, so we will follow up. They'll be on an agenda, maybe hopefully the next agenda for some additional conversation and we'll work from there. Thank you all greatly for that. The last agenda item we have for this evening is agenda item 11.4. It's the Tetra Tech contract for the showers, the toilet, and the bleacher project that we've been discussing for quite some time. You all don't need to present anything unless you have questions. Right? Yeah, no, I saw that they got computers out. No, and I only say that because we've been discussing this at multiple finance and facility committee meetings and 2 full board meetings as well. So this is more of a formality of approving the documents to go out as opposed to additional conversations about what we're going to do. You've already had those conversations, right? So if folks have conversations or questions, there's not an attempt to try to stop that. Just saying that this is something we discussed. Folks may know most recently and had a whole conversation about pool area, the locker rooms, bathroom accessibility,
Bleachers.
you name it, bleachers.
Yeah.
So that's what this document is.
I'll pull up my spreadsheet. I just have it.
Yes, please.
I did want to talk about that.
No, no, I didn't. I talk a lot about bathrooms.
Karen?
Yeah.
I move to approve amendment to. I move to approve amendment to Tetra Tech agreement for a project at Ithaca High School as presented.
Second.
Moved by Karen, second by Adams. Discussion, debate, dialogue, questions.
Thank you for all your hard.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
So,
Hold on, we're not done yet.
Oh, wait. Hey.
We'll call the question. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you for all your work now. That is the last agenda item for this evening. We will have a full agenda for the next number of meetings as we move forward. So thank you all for everybody. We will close this meeting. Have a good evening.